You clocked in this morning. Someone told you what to do. You did it. You didn't question it. That's normal now. But for almost the entire span of human existence, that moment would have been unthinkable. For 200,000 years, no human being had a boss. Not a manager, not a supervisor, not someone whose job was simply to give orders while you carried them out. Your ancestors lived in small bands where no one held permanent power over anyone else. And then, somewhere along the way, that changed completely. You inherited the result. You live inside it every single day. But you rarely stop to ask where it came from. So where did it come from? And why does your body still react to authority the way it does? Start with what life actually looked like before hierarchy existed. Anthropologist Christopher Bohm spent decades studying hunter-gatherer societies across the globe, from the Kalahari to the Amazon. What he found again and again was strikingly consistent. These groups were not passively equal. They were aggressively, actively equal. If someone tried to boss others around, tried to hoard resources, tried to act like a chief, the group didn't just ignore him. They mocked him. They gossiped about him. They excluded him. In extreme cases, they killed him. Bohm called this a reverse dominance hierarchy. Instead of one person dominating the group dominated anyone who tried to dominate it. Power flowed the opposite direction you'd expect. The many controlled the one, not the other way around. Think about that for a second. Humans are not naturally submissive to authority. You had to be taught that. For most of human history, leadership existed, but it looked nothing like a boss. A skilled hunter might be listened to during a hunt. An elder might be respected for memory and wisdom. But that respect was temporary, situational, and revocable. Nobody got to keep power just because they'd had it yesterday. There was no promotion. There was no corner office. There was no line of authority running from one person down through everyone else. So what broke it? What turned nobody's in charge into somebody's always in charge? The answer isn't war exactly. It isn't even greed exactly. It's grain. Political scientist James C. Scott, in his research on the earliest agricultural states, argued something that sounds almost backwards. Farming didn't create civilization because it was better for humans. In many ways, early farming made life harder. Worse diets, more disease, longer hours. What farming created was something else entirely. A surplus that could be counted, stored, and controlled. Here's why that mattered. A hunter-gatherer band couldn't be taxed. You can't tax meat that gets eaten the same week it's killed. You can't tax a group that can simply walk away into the forest the moment someone tries to boss them around. But grain sits in a silo. Grain can be measured. Grain can be guarded. And whoever controls the grain controls the people who need to eat it. That's the day everything changed. Not a single day, really. More like a slow-motion hinge point stretched across centuries, somewhere around 6,000 years ago in the river valleys of Mesopotamia. But if you had to name the moment humanity invented the boss, this is it. The moment someone stood next to a granary and said, "This is mine to distribute, and you now answer to me for your share." Once that logic existed, it spread fast. If your neighboring village had a granary guard and yours didn't, they could organize larger groups, feed soldiers through a lean season, and eventually just take your land. Hierarchy wasn't chosen because people preferred it. It won because it outcompeted the alternative. Egalitarian bands that refused to organize under a leader kept losing to those that did. And once hierarchy took hold, it didn't stay in the granary. It climbed. Village headman became local chief. Local chief became regional king. King became emperor. Every layer added its own smaller bosses beneath it, because a single ruler cannot personally supervise 10,000 people. You need intermediaries. You need someone whose entire job is standing between the person with power and the people without it, passing instructions downward and results upward. That structure has a name today. You call it middle management. but it's the same skeleton that held up the very first agricultural states. Here's the twist most people never hear. Your body didn't get an update when this happened. Evolution moves in tens of thousands of years. Civilization moved in thousands. That gap matters enormously, and it's still inside you right now. Neuroscientist and primatologist Robert Sapolsky spent years studying wild baboon troops and documented something remarkable about hierarchy and stress. In baboon societies with steep, rigid dominance structures, animals lower in the hierarchy showed chronically elevated stress hormones, not because their lives were physically harder, because they were constantly, psychologically subject to someone else's whims. Uncertainty about your standing, lack of control over your own schedule, the threat of punishment from above. These things wear down a nervous system, whether you're a baboon or a human being sitting in a cubicle. Your brain evolved in a world with almost none of that. It evolved expecting fluid status, situational leadership, and the constant possibility of walking away. It did not evolve expecting to sit in the same building every day, answering to someone whose decisions you cannot appeal, whose approval determines whether you eat this month. No wonder a bad boss can occupy more of your emotional energy than almost anything else in your life. You are running 200,000-year-old software on 6,000-year-old hardware, and the mismatch shows up as dread on Sunday night. There's a reason certain phrases still land so hard. I don't answer to you. Who put you in charge? Something ancient flinches at being ordered around by someone who didn't earn it through demonstrated skill or shared risk, the way an elder once did. Modern hierarchy asks you to obey positional authority, a title, a rank, a badge, rather than earned authority. Your ancestors' instincts never made that distinction. Yours haven't either. That's why an incompetent boss can feel almost physically offensive in a way that a skilled one, giving the exact same order, does not. This is also why flat organizations, when they work, feel so good to the people inside them. It isn't a management trend. It's a return to a much older pattern your nervous system already recognizes. But here's the part worth sitting with. The band you belonged to for 200,000 years had almost no privacy, no wealth gap worth mentioning, and no escape from other people's opinions of you. In exchange, it had no boss. Civilization offered the opposite trade. More stuff, more safety, more scale, in exchange for taking orders from someone you may never fully trust. Neither arrangement is purely good or purely bad. Both are just costs, paid in different currencies. Your ancestors paid in constant social surveillance. You pay in hierarchy. What's changed, if anything, is that you now get to notice the trade instead of simply living inside it unquestioned. You can ask why a meeting needs an agenda approved by someone 3 levels above you. You can ask why status in your workplace so rarely correlates with actual skill, the way it once did around a fire. You can recognize that your frustration with authority isn't a personal failing. It's an inheritance. So the next time someone tells you what to do at work, and something in your chest tightens before your mind even catches up, that isn't weakness. That's 200,000 years of your ancestors refusing to let anyone stand above them, still running quietly underneath your ribs. You clocked in this morning. Someone told you what to do. You did it. But somewhere inside you, a much older version of yourself is still asking who gave them the right.